Everybody loves the moment where you decide to change your life and you want to make a big change. But what happens when that feeling wears off and it starts to get boring? The problem isn't always insight, it's getting started and sustaining even when there's no emotional momentum. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This is the Life Process Program. And of course, I'm here with my colleague and great mentor, founder of the program, Dr. Stanton Peel. Stanton, good being with you.
Good to see you, Zach.
There are a few people that I work with, at the Life Process Program. People sign up and talk to coaches, and I'm one of the coaches. And I've found that in my life and in coaching, that I don't know, this is an evergreen concept, but this concept is coming up a lot lately. And it's sort of two sides of the mundaneness of getting better. So I thought I could give you a couple. I've made up some case studies, but there's truth to them, you know what I mean? And I wonder if we could talk about them as though there's a client in front of us or something.
Excellent idea. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll call this scenario one. You can imagine a guy stuck between careers, right? So sort of established in his own right, but needing to make a change and feeling like I'm middle age-ish. It's hard to make a change now. This is the kind of forward thinking I think about doing when I'm in my 20s and going to college. But I have some financial pressure and I want to make more money. So I have a job, I have a home. Things are okay, but I know I need to do more if I'm looking at my future. So I'm going to grad school because that feels like I can boost my CV if I do that, and I can more likely to get a better paying job. But all of this together, it's overwhelming. I've got work on the one hand, the tasks from grad school on the other hand, the some overwhelm and anxiety about, well, what am I going to do next? I kind of feel like I wish it were fixed now, but I know it's going to take some time. And then there's the overwhelm of so many competing tasks at once, so that when this guy gets in a position where there's some downtime, or there's any time at all, he feels like, this list of 100 things, I should be doing one of them, but it's kind of hard for me to justify the effort to start one of them. It's hard to get started. And that overwhelm, that sort of existential anxiety plus task anxiety, is creating the space where this person is drinking and probably over drinking. So and it's a loop. When he reflects back on how much he's had to drink, the thought is, now not only do I have all this competing stuff, it seems like the thing that gets me out of my own head is drinking. And then when I look back on it, I say, well, the drinking made it worse. And now I'm in the space again, and the only thing I know how to do is drink. So there's tension there. The person can predict when he's going to drink. He can almost draw out this space and time and maybe even the time of day when it's going to happen. Understands the pattern, but then there's even maybe knows what to do to start in theory. But there's this starting point with that bleeds into the rest of the tasks that he thinks about, where he's thinking, I don't know, I need to start making a change to my health. The drinking is a problem, but just like all my other tasks, it's hard to justify the effort getting started. Just getting started is hard. This is a pattern that keeps coming up. Mundaneness, boringness of getting started, how to start. Yeah, I know what I need to do, but how am I going to make my first step? When am I going to actually say, all right, let's do it now? And in this case, it's getting started.
So, the way I think about your question is that's what LPP was invented for, on the one hand. So, I view it in theoretical terms, which is this: we're working with the person on creating a foundational approach to life. And so, for example, we don't view relapse as like, well, here's an accident, or, oh, look, I had some rum cake and I relapsed. We look at it as a fundamental approach a person has to life. And so, you're talking about continuity and perseverance. And I think the same thing applies. So the issue is, what kind of a model do we lay out and offer a person so that they can successfully pursue and continue with a set of behaviors and a whole way of relating to life that works for them? And so we go through a series. I won't go through the whole thing now, but we explore with them their purpose. Well, what do you want? And it's in terms of their values. We explore with them what their life is like. Well, tell me what's going on in your life as you described, how they're very busy. We talk about their values, what it is they want. We talk about their resources, what they bring to the table in order to do all of this. Um, and a plan for going about doing that, utilizing the skills that they have and what skills they need to attain going forward. And so we apply a larger model to what some people view as a kind of individual separate issue. Mike, did you want to, does that ring a bell with you? Is that how your thinking goes?
Yeah, sure. And so seeing the bigger picture of life as all interconnected, um, the specific question is sort of if somebody runs through that and could say it back to me, how come you think that doesn't translate into getting started?
Well, it's there's 100,000 books written about how to get into a positive lifestyle, how to complete a resolution that you've made. And what we need to do is to start at the basic roots of their life, appreciating their life and appreciating and building on their view. I have a case that's very reminiscent of what you're describing. It's a person who's very successful in business, and he wants to transition to um, having a rich personal life. He wants to have a family. He's 40ish. A little, it's very descriptive of where you're going,
Hmm.
approaching middle age. He's very successful. He knows what he wants. He can express these values. He had a relationship that was interrupted by drugs and alcohol. And we don't approach that in terms of fundamental. We don't focus on, well, why are you taking drugs and what's alcohol do to you? We turn it around instead, and we say, well, let's take a look at your overall life and where you want to go and where you need to go and what resources you bring to that. And this person's a business person. And so he has some skill at utilizing a planning approach.
Right.
What's your model? What do you want? What do you have that allows you to go in that direction? Why is that valuable to you? What skills do you have in place to do it, but that other skills that you need in order to do that? So it's a matter of focusing and applying resources and skills to values that we've helped them elucidate, and then to pursue, to have a realistic plan for going after those things. So that's our way of dealing with discontinuation and relapse. Let's let's think about how you want to structure your life to get what you want, which is going to make you happier, which is going to involve you investing more in some things than others and making choices that you alternately don't make now.
As a clinical approach for somebody who has a list of those things that he or she might do, right? So like going through that formula and then saying, well, I could do A, B, C, D, or E. Those would all help me move forward. Um, I'm dealing more and more with people who are making lists of things and feel like they never get to the end of a list, so never get started on their new list. Do you know what I mean? What's your clinical approach? I can tell you what how I think about that, but
Well,
what's
why
your approach?
don't you, Zach? Don't you try and order that list in terms of their values? Like, first of all, they're often paying you or me money.
Right. It's like why waste your money?
What is it? What is it you're paying me money for? What do you want? The case I gave, the person is expressing a value that he wants a family, so he's coming in, and then we say, okay, let's just get concrete about it. What choices do you have to make to go to fulfill this family value?
Right.
So it's we can never organize a person's life. We can never organize a person's values. We can never choose among the choices the person makes. They have to feel it in terms of their own internal perspective. You're smiling. We're helping them to clarify. Why don't you take a shot there?
No, no, go. I feel like you're on the ball without ever having talked about it before.
We're asking them to clarify what their values are. And so if they say, well, I'm doing X, we say something, I'm going to shorthand it like, is that you want to do something different and to put it in the most simple form because that'll make you happier.
Mm.
You want it. You've come to us because there's something you want.
And you keep telling me you want it.
And you keep telling me you want it, and you're paying me money to
Right.
tell me you want it. Now, what will it take to do what you say you want that'll make you happier? And, sometimes they'll start to argue. So, one thing that I do, the person, the example that I gave you, the person, and it sounds like some of the cases you uh, 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 hypothetically described, the person starts explaining to you, well, I can't do that because I have to, brush my teeth, or I have to go to work, or I have to, um, you know, go to the school play. And then what I say to them is, oh, okay, what is it that you want to do? And what's that going to look like? Let's think about that specifically. What does that life look like? And what steps do you want or need to take to move in that direction? And then I'm saying to them, and they'll argue. And sometimes, for example, the person will argue, "Oh well, I'm a prevaricator." Or, of course, in the case of addiction, they'll say, "Well, I'll turn to drinking, or I'm turning to drugs." So, in the life process program, in a case that I'm talking about, a very successful business person, I say, well, um, and they've come to me with their values, they've come to me with skills, they know how to get things done. They're not a standard kind of rehab case. And I say, let's not put yourself down. Let's follow a business model that's goal directed. You know how to get things A, B, C, D done. We're looking forward. In this case, the client said to me they had a previous therapist who went to explore their background, their trauma, and all of those backwards things. And I said, well, let's just be here and now, problem solving, looking forward, functional. Those are keywords. Let's create what works as a plan for you. And then let's decide what you need to do to go there and what assets you have that'll allow you to go there. I'm putting it into his, and this is a business person who's functional, and many of the clients we have are functional. It's a different set of circumstances when you're trying to create basic functionality, help them explore that. That shifts to another topic, that second thing. We deal also with disenfranchised, marginalized populations, where in some cases they're trying to enhance their basic functionality. And what we're not in the business of doing or teaching, telling anybody anything. We're in the business of helping people feel efficacious, allowing them to see how are, what they believe will be the best in their own lives, and helping them to allot the resources and the time and the energy to pursue those things in a way that works for them.
I had what was she? A clinician, I suppose. She worked at my high school, and while she was working with me, she was sort of life process oriented before this program came along. She said something like, she said, imagine that you asked me, you pointed me to a room in your house and said, will you decorate this for me? And it's like, there's no way I know your preferences or what you want in it, and I might be really good at decorating, but you don't really want me to do that. You really wish that you could do it so that it could be like you like it. And it's the same thing with your life, get better in your life, getting started on things. And I think about that sometimes with folks who have, it's funny, they say they haven't gotten started or can't get started, but having this big discussion about the parts of their lives that they want to improve and what they want out of life, that's pretty good on the way of getting started, I would say. What I think what they mean is they haven't seen results yet or haven't gotten to the step where it directly produces results, although that could be an end step. So there's a person I'm working with who I've told, I mean, you can basically describe the time, the place, and then what will happen, the thoughts that'll go through his mind, and then what he's probably going to do instead because it just don't have the bandwidth for it. And so that just a practical tip in getting started
The
is,
practical is very critical about it. I think I was just talking with you about how I've lived at my current address for 8 years, and I only just now discovered that there's a gym a couple of blocks from me that I can go to for free because I'm old.
mm,
And, now I know what to do at a certain time of day and where to go and where to park my bike and where the machines are. So it's that, on the one hand, so rote, and you can't discount how easy things are. On the other hand, to go to the other extreme, we're kind of inspirational in the sense that we're not telling people, we're allowing them to see their own strength. We're saying,
mm,
well, we're not going to go to the gym. We're not going to decorate your room. Um, in fact, you have skills that you've demonstrated in your life where you've done things like this. If you're a successful teacher or a successful decorator, a successful business person, or even if you're a person who has not an overwhelming number of successes, there are things that you've done successfully. Let's borrow or get into that mindset. You are able to make things happen. You are the creator of your own destiny. So we're combining inspirational, there's a million inspirational speakers who help people to see that they're doing that. What we do is we invest in their own strength, the way you describe the teacher doing it. It's your vision, it's your skills. You've done this. Look at your life and the resources and the people you have around you and the opportunities you have around you to make this vision come true. It's in your bailiwick.
if someone can describe to me the situation where things happen or don't happen, I mean, so like if we stick with the analogy that I gave, you can get a consultant now. I could take my camera and put it around my room, and the consultant could say, "Well, what's your preference?" And you'd say, "Well, I want it green over there," and they would tell you what paint to get and how to do whatever. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but if a person can get me to the point that of what they're thinking and where they are, you can kind of do the same thing. You can kind of start saying, "All right, let's go there," almost gestalt, right? Like, let's go there and tell me what you're thinking. But then, like, pair that now with what you kind of want to do. Give me some options, and that is the. It seems so silly, obvious, but it's that has been a great marker of success in working with folks for me who are intelligent or who are descriptive, even argumentative. Because if someone's argumentative, I know that they have a stake in it, right? They want something personalized,
In other words, your job isn't to win. If they say no, no, no,
right? Right.
you're good.
No, no,
They say,
no is
oh,
good.
forget me.
Right. Exactly.
One of
Right.
the things I read for some strange, I live in a place called Brooklyn, and periodically I read a story. Well, they have a regular feature, and the feature is this: two highly successful people have bought a property that would stun any human being anywhere other than maybe Brooklyn or maybe, I don't know, Los Angeles. And they hire a decorator to make that building what they want.
Mm,
And now, so it's exactly what you described. Now, what's the decorator? The decorator doesn't come in and say, oh, this is how I design buildings. They say, oh, well, what do you like? And they say, well, I like natural look. I
right.
like natural walls. I like a natural oak floor. I like traditional furniture. And they tell you everything they want. So I'm reading this. Now, that person that you brought into your house to do this in Brooklyn charges quite a lot of money to do that. You know, we're in what people think of as the amount of money they need to live or buy a house, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Whenever I read, I love reading these things, but whenever I read that, I think, well, if the person has already expressed what it is they like, well, you can go to somebody and get an oak floor sanded. You can strip down the painting on your wall. You can go to a furniture store and say, I like traditional furniture. And then all you have to do is pay for the stuff, which
Hmm.
the people who get the designer pay for all the stuff. Plus,
The
they
service.
pay for
Yeah.
the designer to say, well, what is it you want? Oh, here's how you do it. Now, maybe these are busy people. They're people for they paid $3.5 million for their house to pay a designer $150,000. Okay, that's one way to go. Um, Virtually 98% of the population can't do that, or even these people might be happier if they became their own, not contractors, too strong a word. They're not going to strip the floors,
Right.
but they're going to become the mediating contractor. You can hire a guy in Brooklyn to strip your floors, $2,000. You know what I mean? And so that's our job, is to deal with a normal range of people, not, some multi-million dollar successful corporate type in New York or whatever they do here to make all that money. I always read it, and half the time I don't understand what they do to make that money. They're the corporate concept officer at so and so at a marketing firm, and there's people who are totally flat on their backs, who really, they're not functional at all, which is a somewhat different situation when we sometimes think in terms of extreme harm reduction. But everybody else is somewhere in between
Mm.
with some set of skills and successes, and abilities to carry forward what they want to do with their own set of values. And when I say inspirational, one of the things I do, it may seem like a gimmick, is when there's virtually every person I talk to, it's logical, has done things that I can't do. And I always go, wow, you can do that. You know what I mean? And I'm the professional helping you. I have some greater experience in going through this process. But there's areas in life where you are more skill enhanced and better able to function than I am. That's the you that we want to put at the center of your life.
Good. I have another case study that's slightly different, but it'll run on the same
Let's
themes.
go.
Want to do it? Um, this I'm gonna give a pretend story, but the theme is right in the center of people I talk to. Um, so you can imagine, I don't know, somebody who drinks is a professional, academic-y, intellectual type, right? And so they go out, they have to work, they have to be taken seriously, and then on the other hand, they have this partying side of them. They like to drink. They like the way that it makes them feel. It's a social lubricant, and they're finding they do too much of it, each time, right? So like I go out, it's a social event, and drinking is actually that's socially permissible. That's what people are doing. I find I can't, I'm just overdoing it every time. And so there is this you've talked about this a million times and we've seen it a million times. There's this idea that people get stuck on where actually if I decided I want to be abstinent, well that's easier because now I'm not thinking about when I go out how to manage myself kind of a thing. That's really hard. Um, but I don't really want to remain abstinent. I like to drink. So, for some reason I can't get in there and figure out what I want to do after two drinks that's making me feel like I'm going to go for three drinks. So there's this thing where people say, I think I should be abstinent, although evidently, even though that's easy and clean in my mind, I never stay that way.
Well, that's course a relapse event where people overcome an abstinence vow. And we have a specific technique for addressing that. We say, well, you know, you have to decide in case of each drink or activity, do you want to do this thing? There's no saying, well, I can no longer make that decision. But let me again take a broader perspective. I spend I more than average amount of time doing what we're doing now, interacting. So yesterday I was doing a podcast with somebody who interviewed me, and he came from a very abstinent background, and then he joined a group of heavy using people. And so he's very preoccupied with groups.
Mm.
And he says, so what if the people in the group very much, tend towards constant or heavy drinking? I'm going to throw that back to you, Zach. How would you react to a person who presents that choice to you?
The choice is I like being around a social group, and that's good for me, but the social group are doing things that I don't like to do.
Isn't that simple?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So the next thing you want to do is say, perhaps this isn't the best group for you.
it's sort of the reason this comes up in conversation a lot. People don't like AA, and then they come to us, and then they say this kind of a situation. Well, I like to go to the bar, and I've got these friends there, but they're kind of dorks, man. They like drink all the time, and I don't really want to be with them. And so I say, well, remember what you told me about AA and what didn't work? You said that you liked the group part of it, but you didn't want to be with people who only talked about their worst days in life and stuck there. So you're gonna kind of have to make a shift, right? Like you are in another situation with this. It's on the opposite end. You're in a social group where they're in the thick of it. So you like being social. How do you do that?
So let me take it back one. I'm always thinking values,
Mm,
goals, functionality. So what I say to the person who is talking to me often is fairly successful in a podcast or in a somewhat high end um, therapeutic situation. And so I say, well, what do you value in life? What people do you value? Who do you want to be like? And there are people who are successful and work hard and drink. But the successful and work hard part comes first. So another current example, just this past Sunday, you and I often discuss how we're in a recovery world
Yeah.
and everybody's in recovery. Willie Geist does the Sunday morning NBC show. And he actually said, I couldn't believe it. Well, we decided that people are going to drink during the show. And I'm thinking, well, Willie Geist knows that there's a lot of people in recovery. In fact, he has some of those people on his show, some famous people who are in recovery. But the people are not on their show. It's not a recovery show. It's a show about people who are home making a ton of choices. Say, oh, I want to see that famous actress. And so Jamie Lee Curtis is somebody he's interviewed who's in recovery. He doesn't talk to her about recovery. They don't have a drink, as far as I know, but they talk about, well, how did she get to be an actress, and it might even involve quitting drugs. That's her shtick. But other people, the whole focus is, well, you were a kid from the ghetto and you became a rap star. Uh, it's hard to become a great athlete even if you have natural skills. You had to work your way up. You wrote songs, but who recognized them? It's about people who have realized their life function through expressing their skills. That's what the program's about. That's what people pay to see Willie Geist do. And so going back to this podcaster, I say, well, you're a successful person. You have this podcast as part of an ongoing program. Who do you admire? What about a picking social groups based on activities and functions
Right.
where people may drink and take drugs? That's just the way the world goes. But it's on the functionality and not on the substance use.
Are you going to a place to drink or use drugs with people, and that's what the function of the social event is? Or are you going to do something that piques your interest that socially you might do, and there are people there who might be doing the drugs and the alcohol are not the interesting part of the function.
And discussing things you might do together, like decorating your house
Right.
or raising your children or things that you care about. One accusation that people make, our own co-founder, Di Conlon, says, well, all you're doing is common sense. And it's just if you had, I often call it Bubba's psychology. Bubba's the Yiddish word for your grandmother. Very few of my clients have living grandmothers. I don't have a living grandmother or mother, but they have the most practical solution for things, and they just sort of lay themselves out. Well, if you like to be successful and you know successful people, and you don't want to spend the whole evening centered around just drinking and drug use, but there are other people you like because of their other activities who also drink and use drugs, why not hang out with them?
Right. And there's something about being a grandmother or the life process program that sort of elevates somebody into mindfulness in that way, as opposed to being in their own head.
Why do you say that? Why is neither you or I or most people were going to work? Well, some people still have grandmothers around.
A
Well, I'll
nurture.
partly answer my question. There's a famous actress who just, for the first time, directed a film. She comes from New York. She doesn't appear to be Jewish, but she had a Jewish grandmother on her mother's side. And she said her Jewish grandmother was the most influential person in her life because she would go around with her and they would see ballet together. They would go to museums together. Her grandmother was completely unpretentious. She wasn't preparing to develop a superstar daughter. She was just a valuable person who was at some point in her 90s, who just did things and knew how to do things. And her granddaughter did those things with her. And that became her underlying value system and her model for accomplishment.
Hmm. So the life process program is sort of like the Occam's razor of recovery, right? It's like Occam's razor, if people don't know, just the concept that privileges parsimony in science. The easiest, most sensible solution is problem. Let's start with that. And so people come to the life process program, and we're not going to give them some programming that's profound and blows their head off. We're not unlike their grandmother are going to listen and they're going to be able to say the thing out loud. They maybe didn't put words to this before. And we're going to listen and we're going to say it back. And as soon as we say it back, it's almost like they know what to do. Sometimes they need the extra boost. Like, are we both thinking the same thing? Doesn't it make sense to? That works. That's how people make life changes because they need to do it through their own engine of agency.
Would you say you have a skill at doing that, not interjecting yourself into people's lives, but more eliciting their lives? Would you say,
I think I have a skill in doing that. If you wanted to know my flaw or my area for growth, as we would say in the dorky professional world, it would be um, making sure people understand that's what I'm doing. So, you could talk for ages and people could feel understood, but if they're not quick to say, "Oh, I see what I need to do now. I need to seal the deal. I need to make sure I'm a little salesy about it and say, well, so did we just develop something? You know what I mean? So,
you're willing to be, would you say you're willing to be fairly patient about it?
oh yeah.
Would you say you take your time to do that?
I don't know if it's weird or not, but yeah, not only patient, but there is nothing too strange for me. Usually when people describe what they're up to and why, I sort of see, well, you have a reason for thinking and doing that. It's nothing like my life. I couldn't imagine myself doing it, but I could totally see you doing it.
Well,
Um,
they have that in therapy. It's
right, right.
called being client centered,
Hmm.
and it's being go with the patient. And it's in terms of client skills, it's the ability that I think you demonstrate, which is not to see your expertise in terms of the smart things you know.
Right.
You say what you think your gift is.
Well, that could have been a really funny way to call me dumb. You're not gifted because you're smart, but well, to be able to repackage it in a way that allows people to understand what they just put out and understand the scenario and the fork in the road and which way is most obvious for them to travel at the time.
In your lifetime, when you were growing up, did people sort of sometimes not think you were as smart as you might have thought you were because you weren't a quick answer guy? That wasn't how you demonstrated your your abilities.
Yes, you got me. Yeah,
Um,
it's still that way.
it's almost you have to. It's getting back to the life process program is in part respecting and admiring yourself, and we spend time doing that. It's there's not an array. It's an example of why we aren't into diseases because I know this is how you think. You deal often with young people, And so young people are, you come to grips, deal with a young person because something bad is happening. Or not bad. They're not doing well at school, or they're misbehaving, or not turning in their homework.
Right.
But your reaction isn't to go, okay, that's bad, or oh, they have ADHD. Tell me, describe what your reaction is when a situation or a human being like that is presented to you.
Well, I just always want to know what the environment was like for them and how why they're reacting the way they're reacting. To do that, you sort of have to talk to someone, and you sort of have to not be a finger wagging, here's the plan guy. And at you didn't ask about this, but at the same time, if you look like you're engaging in a happy-go-lucky way with the kid who just did something bad, then there's suspicion, arouses some suspicion in the hallways. Like, what is he doing with this guy? But I interact. I like to know who the person
And one
is.
of the things that allows to percolate up in that way of interacting is you start hearing their skills and successes.
Right. There's it not only is and I guess that's what I mean about the environment that they're in. There's some demand that sucks the life out of them that they're not meeting. But when kids talk to me, people talk to me, yeah, you start learning who they are. It's like skills and then what what makes them tick, So, oh man, it sounds like you do well in a blah 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 kind of a space. Maybe we could construct that for you.
And that getting you're dealing with, for one of a better term, kids.
Hmm.
They're still usually in school. They're not making a living or having a family. But we almost take that approach into people's lives. You're describing a person, or I described a person, you described a person, they have a life. They're living a life. It's not completely satisfactory in terms of things they're negatives that they're doing or positives they're not fulfilling. And we're saying, and our job is to, again, quotes, inspire them to make use, recognize what it is they do well in their own strengths, and to allay them in their lives to move in that direction.
I see where you're making the connection. I wasn't doing a very good job yes anding you, but if someone told the story of a really good school counselor, right, you might say, "Oh, he's so good because this kid was misbehaving, and then he went to Zach, and then Zach, I don't know what he was doing with him, but he kind of learned about him, and then he started doing this other thing that he really liked. You should see him now. He's so happy. He's so polite. He didn't know he could do this." Uh,
And the other thing was something he already liked to do or was skilled at doing.
So it's a little bit obvious when you see the whole picture the whole movie of that process from beginning to end, and then you see somebody thriving. So it should be just as obvious to say, well, an adult came to a program, they were stuck somewhere, but the person in the program talked to them, and then the adult realized, well, I like doing this thing, and then they went a different path and
Let's
thrived.
list. Let's close by listing 3 or 5 items that allows the helper to be able to assist the person in that direction. You start.
Tell me if I'm on the right track. All right. It always helps me to hear about past successes of a person. It lets me know that they have been successful. They use their best acting and skills and thinking to make successes in their lives.
And I would say you come to them with respect and curiosity and openness. It's fair to say you're not a judgmental guy.
Right.
And you're a diverse guy. You're ready to look around and, see success wherever it appears.
So there, you took my other one. I guess it's the same thing. I was thinking, on the other side of skills and accomplishments, okay, whatever besets a person or is bringing them down, being able to take that all in the same scope. No gasping at the accomplishments, but saying, well, that's interesting. It sounds like you're successful in blah, blah, blah. No gasping at the downfalls, but saying, oh, that's interesting. It sounds like you've leaned this way. So you said non-judgmental. I suppose that's what that is.
Well, you don't overreact to um, negative events.
Hmm.
In the school setting, by the time they've come to you, there's some kind of maybe punishment involved
Yeah,
already.
the people know when they do something that isn't good, whether that's on them or because but the biggest anxiety, the thing that seems to limit people meditating on the thing that they did that wasn't good is the anticipation of other people's anxiety around it. So if you get to a place where you can speak about things that you've done that you don't like, and somebody's not neurotic about it or anxious about it and needing you to fix it, that's a good space to be.
I, I think you have a gift at that, Zach. I sometimes am a little bit of a rule setter, and I just say, I don't want to hear you put yourself down. Just
Hmm.
we don't have that much time together. Is that what you really want to pay me money to do? Let's go back to your grandmother. Hopefully your grandmother, the person I was talking about, by the way, was Scarlett Johansson's grandmother, Jewish
Hmm.
grandmother, and your grandmother's not going to, put you down. Your grandmother's probably a little over optimistic. Oh, you're the most beautiful girl in the school. You're the smartest girl in the school. Okay. They're not nitpicking your faults. And so, and they don't want to hear you moan about yourself. They want to hear you talk about, oh, I had a great painting. I had a great success. That's what they want to hear about, and that's their whole orientation towards you. And like I say, I sometimes cut to the chase and say, I don't. I'm not going to let you put yourself down. Just talking positives about yourself, please.
Yeah, and that's fair. Yeah. I don't know what I do in that situation. Maybe it'll get a little quieter. I think I just sort of ignore the put downs and change the topic. But on that line, this is something helpful too. I think you read about my excursion that I had with my daughter Hadley recently. I was telling her when I was younger, I didn't set myself in front of the screen all day. I had my days, but I would leave the house and I didn't have a plan. I would just go around and I'd find people maybe, or I'd find something maybe, and that would last an entire day. So I usually left the house not thinking I'm going to be back in 8 hours. So what we did was we just left the house and started walking around our town, and then we did stuff. We wound up being a whole day. We walked miles and figured it out. And she came back and reflected on that and said, it was kind of cool. We didn't plan it, but we didn't make the plan. I was gonna wind up at the school that I that I go to, and then the counselor was gonna say, "Hey, is that Hadley? Want to come in and do this acti?" And I told her that sometimes you do stuff. It's as simple as that. If you do nothing, there are no opportunities. Sometimes if you do stuff and you believe doing stuff is fun and interesting, you'll find opportunities. They might not even be what you're looking for, but they'll be there. So being optimistic, like you said, and being open-minded about I'm the kind of person who deserves and could get something successful or interesting along the way as long as I'm putting myself out there.
Let me close this session by tying it into two things. Love and Addiction described, it made a metaphor out of um, um, you interviewed me and Bruce Alexander. And
Mm,
Bruce Alexander said that he was inspired to do the research in Rat Park, where if he took a rat who was in a little cage and he would take opioids, if you put him in a big space with other rats where they could screw around and play on a Ferris wheel, they stopped taking the opioid. Before he did that research, I went to the monkey lab at the University of Michigan. And the way you got them to see, well, what happens if they take heroin or cocaine is they had an implanted catheter in their spine. So they couldn't do anything. And so we generalized in writing Love and Addiction, Archie Brodsky and I, from viewing life as in Rat Park as in a cage versus viewing life as an opportunity, as an expansive opportunity. And so let's shift that to the whole therapeutic. There's a whole bunch now of cultural analyses and bestsellers that say and you know about all of this, they say the opposite of what you did with Hadley. Kids, out of fear, their fear and their parents' fear, sort of don't leave the room, which is the opposite of what opening your door and hey. And the answer, so they are not addiction oriented so much, these writers, but they point out that kids are depressed and unhappy. They live their lives entirely through iPhones and social media. And their parents are worried, well, what happens if they go to the mall and if they take drugs or if they have relationships? But in fact, bad things happen to them from not doing that. And everybody
Right.
knows that kids have anxiety and depression. And so you take that alternative, you're saying, well, the world's not a cage, the world's an opportunity. We're going to go out there and experience it, and nothing bad's going to happen. You live in a safe, you happen to live in one of the safest. I look it up. You know, South Burlington and Burlington, Vermont is like one of the safest places in America. Good pick. But there, you know, I don't. I live in an area called. I live in an area called Ditmas Park, which is mixed, and I go to the gym on Flatbush Avenue. It happens to be generally totally minority oriented, so I'm often the only white guy in a place, sometimes on the street, in the gym, or in the restaurant. I mean, it's the middle of the day, for God's sake. I mean, how many bad things can happen to you? And everybody's nice to me. You know, I'm an old guy. They try and help me out, you know, like at the gym. And so I, I'm 80, even at my advanced age, I jump out into an environment that's not South Burlington, um, but nonetheless, it's 90% nurturing and supportive. People that want to help out an old guy, they certainly don't want to cause him any problems. And I find all kinds of opportunities that way.
So what did we just cover? We're going reverse chronologically. We said be open-minded and take your days as a kind of adventure and get yourself out there so that you don't get isolated and closed-minded.
See
Um,
life as an adventure rather than a prison.
in order to do that, you have to be optimistic and kind on yourself. Yeah, you can know that you did something you didn't like to do, but now time to sort it out and think it through. And then if we're going all the way back, we're talking about people trying to get it into a specific part of their planning forward, where they've been doing the working of thinking things through. Now they have to try something, and sometimes the change that you want to make in your life doesn't happen because it's a big revelation or the mind-blowing concept you read in a self-help book, but it's just figuring out what you want to be up to on a Wednesday night.
And what I want to end with is that we're just practicing Bubba's psychology. Somebody could listen to this and say,
Duh. Right.
those guys are experts. They
Right.
didn't say one single thing
Right.
that wasn't obvious that my grandmother wouldn't have told me.
And God bless.
Bye. Bye, Bubba.